Hey y'all, Yuritsa here from BujoWitchcraft.com. I've had a couple of you guys ask for kind of like a peek into my bullet journaling stuff after it's been more like filled out and used up a little bit more. I also think it could be cool for some of you have asked me about how like pretty some of my spreads look and stuff, to see some of the not so pretty stuff that winds up in there, and yeah, just kind of get like as raw a view of my journaling stuff as I can give you guys. So I've got my Bujo here. I did have to cover some things up just to like protect other people's privacy, work confidentiality, like stuff of that nature, but I have tried to, yeah, anything that I didn't have to cover up is not covered. Gonna try and keep this short and sweet. I do have a tendency to ramble, the Gemini sun in me, but we'll, yeah, just get this down to the point. Let's get started. All right guys, so we're just gonna dive right in. Didn't touch this page, as you can see. I mean, it's kind of a chapter header. There's nothing really to do with that. But you can see here, again, not too much activity, checking off the days as they go by. These red circles are just kind of how I keep track of my moon cycle. These goals, keeping them front and center, definitely helped me keep them at the forefront and make sure they remained a priority. And because of that, I got to actually complete 2 out of the 3 of them, which is honestly more than I thought I was going to be able to do. So that was pretty cool. And then I was experimenting this month, as you may remember, with not putting a list of projects that I wanted to complete here, but actually listing projects as I completed them. So that proved to be really helpful. If you're like me and you beat yourself up about needing to be productive all the time and not doing enough, maybe give it a shot. Just kind of having to force myself to pay attention to the things that I did achieve helped stave off that tendency that I have to beat myself up for not doing enough. Because I got to really pay attention to the accomplishments that I did have. And then I did, one of those accomplishments was I actually managed to read all 3 books that I wanted to in January, which is Sluts Feminists by Solie. Pretty good. Want to do a book review at some point probably. The Power of Habit by Duhigg, which I actually listened to in audiobook format using the Libby app, Libby. 1010, recommend that app if it's available in your country. It's just a way to like rent books and audiobooks for free electronically because it's through your local library. So loved it, loved that book. And then The Longview Chronicles by Holly Lisle. Nice science fiction story. If you like science fiction or fantasy, that kind of stuff, check her stuff out. If you, like me, enjoy writing fiction or are an aspiring fiction author, also please take a look at her website for like non-fiction stuff about writing, because she is fantastic. She has a free course, like totally free, to get you started. Promise that I'm not like affiliated or sponsored by her in any way. I wish. I am just obsessed. I've been reading her stuff forever. Love her. You can find her at hollylisle.com or hollyswritingclasses.com, and Lisle is Lisle. Yeah, so anyway, that's that. Trying not to ramble, as I said. So these pages, you might remember, also are a lot more fleshed out than they were when I showed you kind of the more empty versions at the beginning of the month. So I did a little bit of journaling during and after the new moon and the full moon, just kind of about, in brief, what I did and how I was feeling, especially as they related to the kinds of things that I had listed as stuff like to watch out for and to expect and stuff during those times, based on some information from the book Moonology. So it was really interesting to see how much that stuff correlated with what was actually going on in my life or not. Pretty much everything matched up except for this pridefulness. During the full moon, I actually had very much the opposite and feeling like I was like the worst, and just feeling like a teenager going through puberty again. It was a weird full moon time for me. And then I'll probably go into this in an actual post later, but you can see next to these spells I have a little code. That's just to show me which journal and what page on which I can find that particular spell. So this is Grimoire number 1. My grimoires actually start with number 0. So this is the second one that I started working on, and then page 30 is where I would find that spell for reference later. Yeah, so that's kind of how that is looking there. Then we get into my gratitude log, and I felt sad how much stuff I had to cover up. Actually didn't have to cover up quite this much. The washi tape is just a little bit thick, but that's okay. You can still see how kind of full it is, and this is always one of my favorite spreads because I don't even have to honestly read these things to feel grateful for them again and to realize how many things I have to be grateful for. Just looking at how many words are on the page is always just kind of a blast of like reality check of, hey girl, look at all this amazing stuff that you have in your life. For those days when I'm feeling down and those days when I'm feeling extra down, being forced to look for 2 things specifically from that day that I'm grateful for always kind of just really helps put things into perspective. So this is one of those spreads that I always have. And then this little memories area that I leave for myself is a little bland. Nothing like super crazy happened during the month, but I don't know. Also, a lot of the things that I've written that I'm like grateful for spark memories for me also. This is just like a place to kind of doodle a little bit about some things when I feel up to it, and there just wasn't a lot that I felt was super worthy about doodling. So yeah, that is my gratitude page all filled out. Here, not going to focus too much on this because you guys have seen it on the website if you've been following the blog. If not, you can find that again at bujowitchcraft.com. It's B-U-J-O witchcraft.com. Just my Celtic Cross spread for the month. Didn't touch it, but I did read it a lot. I sandwiched it between 2 pages that I knew I was going to be doing work on every day to force myself to look at it and acknowledge it, and it really helped keep those messages at the forefront of my mind. I think that's one of the things with tarot that at least I personally struggle with sometimes is I'll go and I'll do a reading and gain a lot of good insight from it, and then like the next day it just all kind of leaves my head. So yeah, that was sandwiching it like that was just a really nice way to make sure I kept those divine messages at the forefront of my brain. And then here we can see my habit log and self-care tracker. You can see obviously it started off strong with quite a few of these things, like waking up early, taking my meds in the morning, stuff like that. Daily draw, bullet journaling was very kind of off and on during the month. Didn't really focus too much on visualizing, mostly because I wasn't waking up early enough to get it done in the morning like I wanted to. It was really interesting too to see how much it kind of correlated with the moon cycles a bit, where, you know, building up to the full moon, I was pretty active and pretty on point, and then as the moon started waning, so did my upkeep with that kind of stuff. But that's one of the things I like about bullet journaling and calling this a log as opposed to a tracker is I really kind of just gave myself permission to not do those things if they didn't happen. This is just a way for me to kind of see where my actual focus has been based on my actual actions. And then this self-care tracker has been amazing. I really liked lining them up like this because I've been able to see some things that I didn't expect. Like, for example, if I sleep for more than 8 hours, my mood level kind of tends to go down and my stress level tends to go up, which I thought was kind of interesting. You'll notice maybe that my sleep goes a little off the charts there. That's related to some other stuff, some of which I can't talk about. Part of it is actually I have narcolepsy, so my sleep-wake cycles are kind of funky. But yeah, so that's how that turned out. I really liked it. And then we get into my first weekly spread, which is pretty much the same as it was when I posted it to the blog. The difference is being pretty much that I was able to check those things off as I went along. So not really a lot new there. Don't want to focus too much on that. And now here we can see my actual daily bullet journaling. And here is the 1st of January, which we can see is not nearly as pretty as the 2nd of January. Life happens. I think it's really important to give myself permission to not be perfect and not always have like, you know, these crazy, like I think this is a really pretty spread that I made, in my personal opinion. It's one that has gotten a lot of attention also. Not everything needs to look like that. Like, this is just normal journaling, just some bullet points about my day, and just kind of like in real life, can't always spend a billion hours making everything look perfect. So in my daily journaling pages is where I really give myself permission to let that imperfection come through and not even worry about it. And then I can focus on the pretty stuff, you know, sometimes like this if I want to, but I can save that more for kind of more intentional spreads and not so much for like the day-to-day. And so I've got some little stuff about my cards for the day, a little like some dream journaling stuff in there, checking stuff off as I go. Sometimes I like to like color coordinate, so all of these things that I highlighted in green were things that I was like, oh, I can knock those out during my breaks at work. So, you know, stuff like that. Sometimes I like to incorporate. It's funny, as I'm looking at it, I really miss the way that this daily spread looks, and I think maybe I'll try coming back to it for a little bit, but I kind of fell off with that as I went along, and I'll talk about that more in a second. Yeah, you can see I kept it up for Thursday also. I've got the nice little like weather and my time tracker, which I love, and I got that idea from Boho Berry. And then we can see Friday here, like just kind of all over the place, super messy, arrows pointing everywhere, chicken scratch handwriting. And the super chicken scratch was just when I opened up the Everyday Witch Tarot, I just kind of went through each card and noted my emotional reaction to each of them, whether I was like super drawn to it, kind of confused by, but still drawn to, some that I was just straight up confused by, and some that like I liked but wasn't like super into. Just wanted to notate that super quickly so that I can kind of reflect on that, you know, months from now when I develop a better relationship with that deck and see how many of this stuff has changed or not, and kind of explore that in the future. Here's that daily review process. I did that blog post a while ago. Not going to go super into that, but I also, you know, I just kind of plopped it in there so I could refer to it myself as well, because sometimes I'll forget these steps if I don't have them listed out in front of me. Again, Saturday, similar like setup as those other days. God, as I'm looking at it, I really do miss this kind of setup. You know, more card of the day. Super simple, a little messy. That's cool. There's nothing wrong with that. Kind of similar thing into Sunday. Got some more tarot journaling here in the middle. When I do an actual spread, something that's more than like a 1-card spread or a 3-card spread, or like the Celtic Cross that I'm super familiar with and I can visualize like the card positions in my head. When I'm doing a different one like this one from the Word Witch, I like to just draw out really quickly the positions of the cards, because that can kind of play into the interpretation and reading as well, so that when I'm looking back on it, like if I want to recreate, like literally recreate the spread so I can look at it again as I'm going back on and kind of reviewing my interpretation, I can make sure that I lay those cards out in the same position that they were when I was originally doing the interpretation. Yeah, so then we're into week 2, which I kind of like switched up a little bit how the spread was looking. Been keeping it pretty minimal again because life happens and I just can't dedicate a billion hours to making things look pretty all the time, even though I would love that. So again, not too much here, just same stuff that was up when I posted, only some of these things are done now, which is awesome. And then we get, again, kept up with this for a little bit longer. You can see week 3 already. Like, look how little I did in my journal that week. There was other stuff going on. I had my partner visiting me from out of town and just, you know, was kind of living and really just not beating myself up for not journaling has been something that I've really enjoyed, because what's like Like, this is optional. I do this because I love it, and so if it doesn't get done, it doesn't get done. That's okay. And if it doesn't look pretty, that's okay too, because this is a reflection of my life and not like something that's just for show. So if it's messy, that's okay. So is life. And then week 3, it was when I first was like, that I did this spread, that I've been keeping this as my main kind of weekly spread for these past few weeks. Part of the reason that I had decided to do this one page, as I discussed in the post about it, is because I had been kind of overloading myself, and this forced me to keep things very simple. But it was also because I didn't want to just leave a blank page. I had finished week 2. I had this one page here. I didn't want to just turn the page and start a 2-page spread and leave this lonely page blank and empty. So I experimented in pencil and tried out a couple different things until I got this layout here that I liked a lot. And we can see I did great with no cigarettes for a while. Yeah, so that's kind of where we're at there. And then I think this was the last day that I did this kind of really nice layout and really, really planned my day ahead, which is exactly counterintuitive to this whole limit myself. But that's okay. Sometimes it takes me a few tries to learn a lesson as hard as the universe tries to drill it into my head. And then again, you can see kind of some more of that messiness, little notes to myself. That kind of, yeah, just tarot journaling. Here's some results for one of those spells that I did. I did have to cover those up for reasons, but I'll show you guys in the future how I kind of index these results so that I can flip to them more quickly. I did have to cover this up. This is just kind of financial stuff. The reason the rest of this page is empty is because like this financial stuff is going to get added to later, but I did have to cover that. And then, oh, so pretty. I love looking at this. This took me forever and it was so worth it. And I very much needed this quote because I had been planning way too much and then beating myself up for not doing it, even though those plans no longer served my goals. I guess I did kind of keep up with this, but did kind of more monochrome image. I liked that a lot. Like, I've been really digging black and white recently, so again, despite this quote, was still loading myself up a little bit too much, but I worked with that as time went on. I did have to cover this page for reasons, so we're just gonna skip ahead one. Here's where I did my interview with that Everyday Witch tarot deck that I posted about online. Again, look at that chicken scratch handwriting. Not everything has to be beautiful all the time. This is your permission to make stuff look like a wreck. And that brings us into week 4, which is again where I kept that same layout that I had done all the way back here. I transferred that over here and then decided that, I guess this is where I stopped doing this daily spread. Because I was like, okay, if I'm gonna limit myself, I'm gonna really limit myself. And so the only things I needed to really focus on had to fit in this tiny, tiny, tiny little space. Like, look at that. That's so little space. But it really helped make sure that I was focusing on the things that really mattered. And if I got more done than was listed on here, it was a bonus. And I think that's really important about like not setting up for failure, because if I only have to do a handful of things, I can do that. And then if I do more, awesome, win, as opposed to giving myself 20 things to do and I only do 3 or 4 of them, and maybe they were the most important things to do, maybe they weren't, but I still feel bad about all the things that I didn't do. So this has helped with that a lot. Yes. And then this was just, I've been doing a lot of decluttering and stuff, and I was flipping through some old books, and this little doodle from when I was in like high school fell out, and I just felt like I wanted to plop it in here. I was never going to look at it again otherwise, and I remember this doodle, and I remember what was going on in class and where I was and everything when I was doodling it, so I decided to put it in here so that I can actually look back on it some more. Again, we've got some more spell results. So this is the little sigil that I had created to help me quit smoking. Again, I'll go into that threading, that kind of stuff later. Here I just did some, again, I kept all of the to-do stuff on this spread so that I could leave the messy journaling and everything else on like the day-to-day in its own kind of place where it was allowed to be more raw like that. So this is just kind of feelings and all that good stuff that journaling is for. Here were all my big plans for my full moon ritual, of which I did precisely 0 because of like illness and things like that. Again, some more tarot journaling. Also, guys, whenever you see like this big band of beautiful gold washi tape, it usually means that I messed something up and I just wanted something pretty to cover it. So quick tip there, washi tape is your friend. Week 5, same layout. Don't feel like I need to bother you too much with that because this video is already getting longer than I intended it to. So there you go. Week 5. That kind of brings us pretty much up to date. You'll notice, obviously, this is when we go from January into February, and I just kind of decide which week or which month the week is going to go to based on where the majority lies. So we've got 4 days in January, 3 days in February, which means that this week stays in the January spread where you're seeing it now, and February stuff comes later. Yeah, I was really digging this kind of like monochrome and gold thing. Very much gonna keep up with that. Here is a little bit what I was talking about in today's blog post about like looking at what is working and what isn't working, and then why, like my weight tracker that I did for the whole year, I keep forgetting that that's even a thing. So I'm gonna be including that as part of my weekly review and see how that works over the next month. And then I was kind of just brainstorming how I wanted to lay out a prettier version of kind of the month in review. So yeah, just some kind of more scattered, messy brainstorming stuff. Some more tarot journaling here. This is actually for the rest of today, and maybe I'll put like a quote or something on here. I hate leaving pages blank, but I wanted to make sure that I set up February and posted it to the blog before February actually started for you guys. So I kind of had to just guesstimate how many pages I was gonna need to get me through the end of this week. And I hit it almost on point. And then here's that January in review where I decided to do the things I'm proud of. Some lessons I've learned that I want to remember because I'm very good at learning a lesson and then immediately forgetting it. Things to improve on, things to stop, start, and continuing. Again, just kind of that stuff that I was talking about a little bit in today's blog post. I like this a lot as kind of like an acknowledgements kind of portion to the end of January as a chapter, so I can just get like a quicker overview if I don't feel like flipping through everything, but I still want to remember all the awesome things that I did and all the awesome things that I want to do and all that kind of good stuff. So this brings us to the end of January into February, which is starting out pretty okay. Hope this video wasn't too terribly long. Definitely was longer than I meant it to be. Sorry about that. But yeah, I hope this was helpful. If you have any like questions about any of this stuff or requests, or if you're so not interested in it or you want more of it, whatever, please let me know in the comments here or on the blog or on Instagram. Yeah, because I'm gonna keep doing what I'm doing, but I want to help inspire and learn from you guys also. So yeah, just let a witch know. In the meantime, kisses. Love you. Mean it.